Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first actual play of Wickedness by M. Veselak. My name is J. Dragon. Feel free to ask me what pronouns to use. I am doing great this fine April afternoon, and if I had a familiar, because I was a witch, mine would be a big white cat. I'm joined here with Brennan and Jeeyon. Brennan?
Hi, my name is Brennan Lee Mulligan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm so excited to be here playing M's incredible game. This is so cool. If I had a witch's familiar, I would have I actually know the specific crow I would have as my familiar, and it's the crow from the internet video that snowboards on a yogurt lid down a very steep roof. So that would be my familiar.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeeyon. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. I'm also so excited to be spending this beautiful, uncharacteristically gray afternoon playing a game about witches. Seems very on brand and awesome. I live with a rat and a cat, so I have two familiars. If I was gonna onboard a third one, I'm gonna say a Wolverine.
Oh,
yeah. They can take down anything. I feel like you wouldn't have to worry about grocery store lines or meat. Meat would really not be a concern anymore. Real teamwork there.
I love the image of just strolling up to a grocery store and just being like, pardon me.
Yeah.
6 feet for my Wolverine, please.
I remember. I was going to say there's a Wolverine factoid that blew my mind when I was a little kid. I used to collect animal fact cards, and there was a thing of listing common food species for Wolverines, and one of them was bear. And I was like, it's one thing that like one time a Wolverine ate a bear or killed a bear, maybe it was a sick or old bear, for you to make it to like the everyday menu, that's so intense.
I love them. There is a video that made its way around the water cooler at work a couple years back of someone found a Wolverine in their backyard during a snowstorm, taking an elk down by basically just latching onto its face, like a full bull elk with the antler rack and everything, and it just latched onto its face and it just didn't let go. And I have to say, as strategies, it seems pretty effective.
Wolverines do have the energy of what if you bred a supernatural monster hunting alpha predator creature from a rat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. I love it. Yeah, I love that they look kind of ungainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good.
So let's jump right into Wickedness. For those of you who don't know, Wickedness is a tabletop role-playing game. It is designed for exactly 3 players. If you're watching this, that means it is the Kickstarter has just launched, or maybe the Kickstarter launched a few weeks ago. I'm not a psychic. It is a game about a coven of magical individuals, most often witches, but they don't have to be, kind of living their lives and going through the trials and tribulations of being 3 people who care about each other, but also get into conflict. The sort of opening of it is, the coven lives in the sanctuary. 3 figures bound by fate to one another, to the movements of 2 worlds and magic itself. It is not an easy or normal life. The natural order should be a harmony between the coven mates and between the underworld and the kingdom above. But where wisdom does not reach, wickedness may dwell. Just to cover some safety tools. Wickedness is a game with some great built-in safety tools, some really smart spectrum safety that I really like. First off, just a general content warning. Wickedness is mild enough for kids. It does contain themes around poverty, fantasy, marginalization, in terms of sexism and like occasionally like a little bit of like, you know, sort of like inter-kingdom conflict, violence, dysfunctional relationships, abandonment, romance, mental illness. If at any point something comes up, we can always shift some stuff around. But if any of those are like very big no topics, we can also talk about that right now. Cool. So one of the big emphases the rulebook makes is the difference between like being upset and oofed. When we are upset out of character, that's sort of we can use that language as like, oh, I am upset right now. This is upsetting. If something like tugs on your heartstrings in character, where it's like there's like a big feeling that is like fun to play in, we can call those oofs. So if you know like if my character gets their heart broken, we can call that an oof. We don't have to consider, you know, like, we can like distinguish it that way. We can also check in, like, are you oofed right now or are you upset for real? Humans first. Wickedness it has a very ritualistic vibe to it. Like we're going to be like drawing from a deck of tarot cards. It's a game that interacts heavily with a deck of tarot cards. And it's got a lot of prompts tied to that. And because of that, sometimes you can get the pressure of like, well, I can't go against the rules of the game because there is like, you know, there's like, we're not supposed to like cut against that. But because this is a game, like the players obviously come before the game. If at any point you feel like a prompt doesn't work for you, or if there's something like that comes up in the game you don't want, we can skip the card, we can take a card out, we can change anything that's been written or said, we can shift it around, we can look at a prompt and reinterpret it. However we're feeling, we are more important than the deck of cards. And then the final piece is the idea of the finger. This is more of like a concept when playing online than it is like a thing we can use at the table, like you would in sort of real life play. This is basically the idea that the default assumption is that if someone's trying to answer a question, you don't want to jump in and give them your own thoughts because that's disruptive. People need time to think. If someone is looking for like an idea, like they need like some kind of like, if they want outside input, in a real life game, they might go like, and put their finger on their lips and go, or we can just ask each other, like, does anyone else have thoughts on this? But the important part is that the default assumption is that when it's someone's turn to answer a question, it's their turn. It's not on us. Do we all feel comfortable with that? Is there anything else we want to talk about? There are also built-in breaks in the game, and we can also like call a break whenever and like, you know, get up and start like stuff. If anything else comes up, we can also talk things through as we go. And if at any point, I think a general good guideline is that if any of us want to introduce something that might be messy, we should just like check with everyone before we jump into it, right? Like if I want my character to be struggling with a certain thing, I'll bring it up first before.
Yeah, that's great. Can you give a specific example? Because messy feels like it has watery definitions.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I was thinking for that is something like if I want to have a character who who has struggled with, let's say, for example, suicidal ideations, I would be like, hey, do we want to have that content in the game before I had that as part of my character's backstory? Yeah.
Sounds great.
That makes sense to me.
Perfect. So this game is made up of 3 chapters, each of which takes between 1 and 2 hours. We're going to play them in one sort of little marathon, but if you are playing at home or online, you are welcome to play it as like a 1-shot or as a 2-shot or a 3-shot. You can like break it up really easily that way. The first chapter is Truths, where we will make our characters figure out the world, sort of set everything up. The second chapter is Troubles, where we will face down a series of challenges from the tarot deck offers us, and we'll overcome them and grow and try to kind of keep things in balance. And then the third part is Trials, which is similar to Troubles, but the stakes have risen, things have gotten harder, and things have gotten we've grown a lot since then. The game also has the capacity to just end abruptly if we just let the world grow too far out of balance. I was playing a week or so ago, and we almost did that, where we just let too much ignorance in the kingdom, and our kingdom just almost completely melted down. Yeah. So all of that set up. I set all those things up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to real quick. The first thing I'm going to deal out here are this is what is called our Nebula Fate. This is these are 3 face down card piles, which we are not going to look at yet, and we will not look at them for some time. But what they are is a kind of like a reminder that our character is going to grow and that their fate is already kind of set in stone for them. There we go. So I'm going to put them out. Is going to correspond with the pure heart, the wild spirit, and the old soul. And as you sort of deal these cards out, these just sort of sit at the table, and they come up later. I have 3 little decks next to me in front of me. I love Roll20. Thank you to Roll20, making this very easy. Meanwhile, I guess I'll just keep talking about some game stuff while we deal these out. I think a sort of the basic structure of the game is that we are each going to randomly end up with one of the 3 character archetypes: the pure heart, the wild spirit, or the old soul. These are invoking of the Mother Maiden Crone, but they are also kind of doing their own thing. The pure heart is more innocent and kind of is more about protection and healing and thoughtfulness. The wild spirit is more violent and confrontational, and sort of more explosive, but also sort of passionate. And the old soul is reserved, analytical, thoughtful, sometimes too thoughtful. And so we are each going to get we're each going to get handed 2 cards. We are going to get handed 3 cards.
So we should eventually see 3 cards at the bottom of our screen. Is that right?
I just saw a little card show up.
Yep.
Was I too excited? I got
No, I love that.
I didn't know it could do that. Do I click on it yet or no? I don't click.
You are welcome to look at these. Yes. You do not want to look at the ones that are face down on the table, but we can look at the
I got another one.
Got another one. And you're about to get a third one. Yes, you're also about to get a third one.
Jay, you were talking about how you want to pick up magic tricks as a hobby, and Brennan is clearly the perfect audience for it because he's responding like you're a stage magician. It's great.
I didn't know that. In order to do magic, I just have to click some buttons on Roll20.
I went to the Magic Castle in Los Angeles and got dirty looks from gasping at parts of the magic trick that were just pure setup. Someone's like, I get a little too into it. So someone's like, I'm the amazing Dave. And I'm like, really?
Wow, you are?
Like, I can't believe it. It's just, hey, you know what, gang? Choose wonder if you can.
True. So the thing that's going to matter right now is the middle card, which is either the Fool, the Magician, or the High Priestess. If you have the Fool, which is Brennan, you are the Pure Heart. Also note, by the way, if we don't like the ones we've got, we're welcome to swap around. Jeeyon, you got the Wild Spirit, and I got the Old Soul. Are we all into that? Do we all like that?
Oh, I see.
Should I click on my middle card to see it pop up or no?
I think all three of them will pop up if you click.
Yeah, all three of them pop up.
Oh wow. Okay. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, this is great. This is great.
Oh, wow.
You're the audience member every performance wants, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. The Fool, the Star. Okay. Very cool. We'll get to all this other stuff. But for right now, I am the Fool. So that makes me pure heart. Oh, perfect. That's wonderful.
So if you zoom in on your character sheet, you can see there is some options. We are going to go through and we are going to fill out the 4 choices. We're going to talk about it. And then once we do that, I will also explain what the rest of the sheet means. And Roll20 lets us write all over it. We can use a pen, we can use typing. One of my name options is Chandler, and I just can't choose that.
Oh, there's the character sheet. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
How do I minimize the cards once I've hit them? That's how
if you click on where the, let me see, let me load up your cards, and then, yeah, if you click on the cards again, it minimizes them.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll probably just do some weird. Okay, we're good.
So, okay, the Moon, the Magician, and the World.
Cool. So you are the wild spirit.
Should I, as I'm making choices based on my personal arcana, consider the effect that the following 2 arcana would have on
you
those
are
choices?
Absolutely correct. Thank you so much. You're absolutely correct. Notes, if you got the Sun, your character is primarily driven by reason and practicality. If you got the Moon, you are primarily driven by emotion and mystery. And if you got the Star, you're primarily driven by faith and connections. This does not have much of a mechanical impact, but it does sure give you some good vibes.
I love this so much. And should we factor our power arcana in as well in the character creation process?
Yeah, sure. Let's factor that in too. We don't have to, but I think it would be nice. If you got so I got the I got the Chariot. So I get actually let's do power arcana after this, actually, looking at it. Yeah, let's take care of that in a moment.
Okay, cool. So I'll consider the personal and then the personal arcana and the so I'm considering the Fool and the Star as I design the character, and we'll get to power later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
The predictions I trust most come from I am absolutely an augur. I 100% aug.
Oh, it's all a horizontal spread. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Cool. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Oh, more knives than I can count is a real life problem I have. I'm going to not do that one. Yeah, one of my chores for today is literally to sharpen my knives, and I'm dreading it because it's going to take me at least an hour just because I have too many of them. Unrelatedly, if you want a knife mailed to you, you can ask me. And it can happen if that's a thing that you need. Okay.
I kind of want a knife. I don't know. I feel like that might be useful.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bust a wild move here and pick one of the pre-selected names for the Pure Heart. I'm gonna go with Charlie. I love the name Charlie. I think
Charlie's great.
I love Charlie. I'm going to buck M's design by spelling it differently. I think that my character, I think I'm also going to go I think she spells it Charlie. So it's the classic Charlie spelling that she goes by.
Wow, I so rarely have to do this. I have to look up a nerd word. I don't know what a LaBresh is.
Oh, Labris? I know what that one is because I'm sapphic. Very, very sapphic.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the double-headed lesbian axe.
I love it very much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why don't I have one of these? How did I not know what this is? I feel okay. Well, now I have one fictionally here. Great.
True. I think my character is. I'm definitely an old soul. I think I'm a very nerdy old soul. I think is a lot of old souls I've seen are like very Gandalfy, and I think I'm much more like I've got like my star charts and my like flock of pigeons. And I have a fixation on romance and adventure.
Aww.
I think I have these first four, and then it wants me to move into questions before
Don't worry about those yet. No, those are for later.
Okay, so should I keep? So
you can just chill. We can just you are golden.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna run and get another cup of coffee real quick.
Do that, please.
Okay, when Brennan gets back, I have to ask him questions. Wait, no, that's the thing you just said we're not doing yet. I'm so sorry.
No worries. I got you.
So it's just the first four. So it's just the name, the danger calls, how I move, and what the underworld menaces me with.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All you gotta choose right now. So when Brennan gets back, we can all introduce ourselves.
Awesome.
Let's introduce our characters. I can start. My character is Minerva. She uses she or they pronouns. The predictions she trusts most come from her ensorcelled birds and star charts. She has a benign fixation on tales of romance and adventure, and the underworld menaces her with a shadow overhead and cascades of unreadable text. I definitely think she's like, I think she's a bit old, but she's not Gandalf, you know what I mean? Like she's not like the wizened crone necessarily. I think she's just like she looks very much like a librarian. Like she's got kind of that like short gray hair, and spends a lot of time like looking at birds and looking at stars and reading like chivalry romance novels, you know. And yeah, that's her vibe.
My character's name is Eris. Her tools that she wields when danger calls are a flaming sword and or a stare that kills. She moves depending on the occasion, like liquid silk or like a knife. And when the underworld menaces, it menaces her with snaking chains or mazes and veils.
Ooh.
Awesome. My character's name is Charlie. She her most important tool is this was a hard choice for me because it was between a hand mirror or enchanted dough. I think Brennan, the person, would go with the hand mirror, but I feel like I play a lot of like seeker characters, and something about this, I was like, this person is a helper, like more than a seeker. So her most important tool is enchanted dough, which in my mind she uses to feed all the people she cares about. Her medicine leaves a telltale sign, which is, in this case, a wondrous appetite. And the underworld menaces her with a stalking beast.
Oh, very good. Great. Yeah, I love these characters.
Is it a Wolverine? I'm sorry. That's just a
I think it's either, in my head, I'm thinking of like those old English myths of like, you know, like the gaunt, like the black dog at the edge of the swamp.
Yes. Or like the puka. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's like, because I also was thinking about like a seductive stranger, which is another option that's available for the pure heart. But I think stalking beast makes more sense because I think there is a deep terror for her of the stalking beast, but also it's a lot of times like the relationship can either be very dreadful or it can be like doing baking as Charlie is always doing, and a giant shadow dog appears at the window, like sniffing at the baked goods, and it's like, get out of here, you dang devil dog.
Very good.
I love that.
Coming after my magic bread? I don't think so.
Oh my god. I think actually Minerva is going to use they pronouns, just so we've got a little bit of a mix.
Can I change my character name? Because you
Yeah.
actually inspired me, Brennan. I'm going to change my name from Eris to Tamsin.
Ooh, I love that.
A novel by Peter S. Beagle of the same name that is like Brooklyn 13-year-old moves to the rural English countryside and runs into all of those myths, and it just like immediately brought me back. I love that name, so I'm going to use
absolutely.
Oh, incredible. So Minerva is they, them, Charlie is she, her, and Tamsin she, her.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me write down all yours as well, Charlie. She, her, or sure, and Minerva, they, them. Okay.
And if we want, we can also write those down on the thing. It's on the Roll20 interface itself.
Oh, right, yeah.
We can underline things and circle things. And
totally.
Cool. So now I'm just going to talk us through the rest of our character sheet. You will see there's the questions below, which we have acknowledged already. Those are going to come up at the end of this chapter. There's also 2 sections on the side. First off, it says my power. That is a description of where your magical power comes from and like what it looks like. It is also informed by the 3rd card you've got. It is what do you call? So for example, my power is best used to seek knowledge, but it's also used to, and then I've got some additional options, which are conjure spirits, pass unseen, or lay curses. I'm going to choose conjure spirits, but you can choose any of the 3 there for you. And then it also says it comes from the following sources. There are 9 sources there, which are the text in bold. Those are sort of your magical reservoirs of power. As we play the game, you might end up crossing them out, in which case they become no longer true, and you might end up blacking them out, which means that not only are they not true and they never will be true again, but you replace them with something horrible. And they are like statements that are true about you. So for example, my character is like, on the surface, I am tidy, harmless, and lively. I might end up, if one of those gets blackened, I might be like, on the surface, I am tidy, harmless, and shadow riddled, etc. I see the value in myself and my friends and in arachnids, etc. Note that some of these are a little bit negative traits, like you might not want your character to be unsure or angry or afraid, but there's something deeply unsettling when the old soul is no longer unsure or the wild spirit is no longer afraid, right? Like, these sources are also things that help keep us in check. You will also notice the My Follies section. These are things we will do a lot. You will do them about 2/3 of the time. And they are kind of the ways in which you are not helpful. And they are just all things you do and you decide what they mean in the context of the game. So like, one of mine is fail to act until it's too late. And I can fall prey to a folly sort of as we go through the deck when I fail to deal with a problem. Yes. You each have one of the major arcana. Jeeyon, what is your 3rd arcana?
Mine was the world.
So you get to choose between earth magic and dream magic.
I saw that. I think the mazes and veils as the Underworld thread is inspiring me to take dream magic. It's also a little less typecast than I tend to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're getting very like pigeonholed in the like,
oh, in the, like basically lives under a log. Great, druid it is, and I'm like, I mean, sure, yeah, again, yes, 54th time. Yep, that sounds
right. Almost every single time I've played this game, I've ended up being the pure heart, which is, I feel very called out every time. Brennan, what is your card? Yeah.
The Hanged Man.
Perfect. So for the Hanged Man, you get to choose between ghost magic and gravity magic.
Oh, man. I feel like ghost magic and gravity magic. I'm going to turn to my wonderful collaborator. This would be my moment here. which I think is because my first thought was ghost magic, just because that feels a little bit more. I think the words ghost magic feel more in the old school, like witchy tradition that Charlie finds herself in.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking not about the name of the magic, but the effects of it, I'm thinking of Charlie like animated in like a Miyazaki film with like floating teacups around her and like things resisting gravity and her flying under the force of her own magic. And I feel like the effects of gravity magic are more her vibe and not communing with the dead. But I'd love to turn over to my wonderful collaborators and see what you guys think.
I love that. I love it, especially because like so much of it seems like your tools and your medicine are very like hearth oriented, like the center, like the gravitational center of the home and everything. But the idea that that when you're like at your peak, you're defying all of that is very appealing aesthetically. I like it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. Yeah, I think Jeeyon's totally right.
Done deal. Then, as part of the Hanged Man, I'm going to Charlie uses gravity magic.
Yeah, and so I got the Chariot, which means I get to choose between travel magic and sword magic. I think I've got travel magic because I don't think my character is very swordsy, but it feels very accurate to be like, what do you call like just kind of like consulting a star chart, and then suddenly I am on a mountain 5 miles away consulting the same star chart from a different angle, you know? I think that feels right.
Yeah, should we be describing the ways that our powers, because like
yeah, I'm interested in how
Brennan described Charlie's. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm interested. Yeah, I want to know your vibe. Tell me more about your vibe.
With the dream magic, I think what it's like is like it's almost like when you're dreaming and you're half aware that it is a dream, and I think that Tamsin is able to basically create a waking dream around her and around whatever she's immediately interacting with. And she has like some control over it, but much like dreams, it's not complete. And so there are a lot of surreal details that might just sort of sneak in, because again, if she's not immediately attending to it, then whatever's happening around her is just the kind of like natural tide of dreamscapes and that kind of ecosystem of emotion and subconscious, especially because it said earlier she's more, since I drew the card that says she's more motivated by emotion and mystery, I feel like that. And it also, hopefully through the game, provide opportunities for like cool narrative moments of just like describing what's going on around the players that you can also jump into, since with dreams often it does feel like there's multiple people there, even if it's just you.
That is so cool. I love that.
We've
also,
been
yes, go for it.
We've been doing this playtest for like 20, 30 minutes now, and I am already stricken with sorrow that we're going to have to say goodbye to these three at the end of this session.
It's actually kind of okay, because we will do like the full narrative arc, you know what I mean? Like, I really love this game because even though it's a one shot, you get the like narrative satisfaction of like seeing the other side of your character and like how they make it through. Yes, I feel you. The first character I played in this game, I still miss.
Love that.
But yeah, great. So it seems like we're all set. Sorry, what did you choose to? So do you want to describe your power really quick? Do that first sentence. So for example, my power is best used to seek knowledge, but it is also used to conjure spirits.
Let's see. Charlie, do you want to go?
Sure. My power is best used as medicine, but it can also empower, understand, and pacify others.
You choose one of the three. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, gotcha. It's empower. No contest.
No contest. Yeah.
My power is best used for violence, but it's also suited to. I'm torn between seduction or transformation.
Oh yeah.
They're both good.
Say both. Hell with it.
Both? Okay.
Do that. Yeah, game lets us do that. Do that. We have that power. Cool. So we are set with our characters. And then we are going to scroll down a little bit.
And do we mess around at all? Because once we have my power is used, but it can also, etc. Do we mess with the sources underneath that at all, or that happens in gameplay?
Those are set. Yeah, those are set for now. They are just true. Gotcha. These are just 9 things that are true about you, no matter what, until they're not.
Gotcha.
And like they are true, and when they are not true, they are very explicitly not true.
Are you talking about the thing above my follies?
Yes. Yeah. Your 9 sources.
Major hat tip to M for using like magical pagan numbers so much, like 3 and 2, and it's very nice touch.
3 is everywhere in this game.
Yeah.
You are going to see the number 3 forever. Like this game is like crazy built around the number 3.
Yeah, I'll try to keep my comments about what I admire about the design to a minimum, because this is an actual play, not like a seminar, but there's a lot that I'm seeing that I really love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about later.
I can geek out about this game forever, but we should play it and hopefully okay, so now what we're going to do is make the sanctuary. So if you scroll down to the bottom left on the sheet, you will see there is the sanctuary. First things first, we're going to do is we are all going to decide where the sanctuary is located. We are given 4 options, but we can also make up our own, mix them together, whatever. So the 4 options that are start with are in a bad neighborhood of capital city, down a winding path through the woods, in a fortress ruin on a lonely cliff, or above a shop in a quiet seaside town. What are we feeling? Jeeyon, what are you feeling?
Either of the last 3, because I have access to none of these right now.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Down a winding path through the woods feels like there's a lot of potential for people to like wander down and like surreal things to happen the further down the road you go. The fortress is just metal as fuck. Oh wait, can I swear on here?
Yeah, you can swear.
Christ, thank fucking God. I always am so nervous about that. Okay.
We all work with kids.
Work with children.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Don't watch this if you're a child. If you're a child or and then above a shop in the quiet seaside town, I like the idea that it's literally above the sea. Like the shop is like, I don't know, almost like a swallow's nest. Like actually there's like a stair or a railing that goes down to it, but immediately underneath it is the ocean.
Wait, that's so cool.
That is
right?
upon describing that, that's my vote.
I love the thought of it being like it's a town, it's a quiet seaside town, and the town is like Venice, but like it's like pastoral Venice. So it's like all these little tiny buildings, like in these like, and like they're kind of all against the water, and then there's a couple of them that go into the water on like stilts, and then there's like our weird building with like a storefront and like just weird. In the water.
I love the idea that you would be able to be in like a almost like boardwalk-esque, like fun, brightly colored pastel marketplace of this adorable seaside town at the front of the shop, and then walk to the back and it's just ocean. Just the back of the shop is just the sea.
Are you guys familiar with cliff swallow nest? What a cliff swallow nest looks like?
No.
I found a quick image link. Let's see if it goes through.
Drop that in the messenger chat.
In the messenger? Okay, not the Zoom chat.
Zoom is wonky, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Let me find it really quick. And we can share this later as part of the like.
Yeah, we can flash it up
if you want. But I'm kind of imagining like, because gravity is still a thing, like the longer that there for a long time, the more like mortar and paste has to be shellacked around the underside to keep it from falling.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Wait, let me see if I can find. Is this? Did you just share this
It's
in the chat?
The Facebook Messenger thread.
Oh my god, hold on. I'm gonna find this real quick.
So good.
Yeah, at one of our overnight sites for work, we have a lot of both cave and cliff swallows, and the cliff swallows make their nest right above the bathroom.
Oh my god.
That's so
Look at that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna do. Oh yeah, sorry, go for it.
No, I was gonna say. So do we think that the shop in the quiet seaside town is at sea level, or is it perched like a cliff swallow nest, like above a massive cliff?
Wait. Oh. So what if it's like here's a pitch. So it's like there's the waves, and then there is like a very sharp, tall cliff. And then our like village is kind of like one of those, like it's like a vertical village along the cliff, and there's like the like wooden pathways and beams and ladders and like riggings, and like it's like it was built from like shipwrecks, so like the sailors are like have like done rope things, so like you can like climb up stuff.
Oh, because it's free lumber. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and so like you can just like turn the shipwrecks into houses, and then like because the sailors like know how to do rope work because of ship building, they can scrabble up and down things.
Yeah,
love that.
Can I add something?
Please.
I love the idea that at the time that the shop was originally built, like I love the idea that it's old, that it's like an institution that's been in the village for a long time, and at the time that it was built, it was like right at sea level.
Yeah.
Maybe there was even a small shore there or something, but then over time the sea level actually dropped, and so it's become more precarious over time, and things like the stairs and the railings and pads and stuff down had to be built in on top of it.
Yeah, I'm so obsessed with that. So now what we're gonna do is we're each gonna choose resources. The sanctuary always has 2 resources, which is living spaces and a modest sum of gold. We are also each going to choose one for ourselves. So whoever wants to start, whoever's drawn to something, can can just mark something off, put a little dot next to it, so you can get the vibe.
Sorry, can you clarify what we're doing right now?
Yeah, so we're looking at the resources section, and we've got 2 resources off the bat, and we're each going to choose one of our. We're going to choose one.
Okay, you're each going to choose one. That's what I need.
Yeah, we're each going to choose one. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
And if we don't like any of them, we can make our own. I'm going to add an observatory tower because I kind of need it to stare at stars. I think the vibe, though, is that like like we've got our like cliffside set up, and then like at the top of the like all the way up the top of the cliff, there is an observatory tower, and there's like a weird series of like underwater limestone, like underwater into the cliff, limestone carved ancient worn down stairways that wind their way up to the observatory tower. And like I just make that trek every single day, every single night to go observing, and like it is a thing done by witches for like 500 years, and so there's like worn down grooves in the steps. That's just a mood.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Jeeyon, do you want to pick next, or would you like me to pick next?
I picked one, but I'm really curious to hear what your choice is.
This is not a game that is played with strategy, but I was waiting for a strategy because there's 2 I really want to pick. So I was waiting to see if someone else would pick one.
Yeah, what I picked.
100% speedrun Wickedness, yeah.
I'm over here, I'm gaming it, man. I'm gonna win Wickedness. That's my plan. Yeah.
You said that, but like I still anyway, we'll see.
I just hope we don't lose Wickedness, because that'll be rough. I one time lost Wickedness. The first time I played, I did it wrong. I just lost, and the world got drowned by mirror people. So.
Oh no!
Cool. For my resource, I chose livestock, and the way that I imagine it is that we construct deliberately a lot of platforms near the shop for Osprey to nest in. Around that Osprey can actually hunt in abundance. They're not in strict competition with each other, about every 180 feet, there's another platform for the osprey, and just like this halo, like archway around us. And so there's always the osprey calling, and they're young, and they're always fishing. And we're sort of like falconers, like, you know, will kind of have to adjust their lifestyle to like having these birds. We've had to adjust the lifestyle to be like, we regularly get fish because these birds are fishing for us, but that means we're also tending to them. We're making sure the platforms are good. And it's like a major chore actually in our seasonal routine.
Two things. Jeeyon, I am so blown away by your knowledge of animals. It's the coolest thing in the world. Two, that also works perfectly because my character has ensorcelled birds as one of my divination tools. So I 100% consult the ospreys and their flying patterns to like.
Yeah, when you said you watch birds a lot, I was thinking about how we could incorporate like birds as companion or routine.
Yeah, that's so cool. So Brennan, what are you feeling?
Let me see here. So for our sanctuary, we chose above a shop in a quiet seaside town. But I noticed that a shop front is one of the resources. Do we feel like we are attached to the shop front, or are we just above the shop front?
I'm not sure. It could be that we're attached, or it could be that there's just another, like there's just a shop underneath us, you know? Like
I dig that. I think if we have this like big fishing livestock thing, I'm gonna go ahead and there's nothing else I can choose. I'm gonna choose Safe Shelter for the Lost.
Yeah. I have yet to play a game of Wickedness where someone didn't choose that. Like, it just feels good right now in these days.
Here's the funny thing. The two, I actually just noticed Shopfront because I was thinking of the fact that Charlie bakes all the time. She has this enchanted dough. But the two I was going back and forth between were Safe Shelter for the Lost and Local Goodwill, which I think Charlie would be heartbroken to not have both of those and would desperately want them both, but would know deep down that if made to choose, you are obligated to choose Safe Shelter for the Lost, even at the expense of Local Goodwill.
Oh yeah.
So now, sorry, that was like very different. Not really loaded as a statement. Damn.
Yeah, that hits. So now what we're gonna do is we're each gonna choose a friend. We have friends of the sanctuary. These are people who don't necessarily live with us. They might also be, but they're sort of individuals that exist in proximity to us who might or might not become narratively relevant. And we're each going to choose one and give them a name and a detail. I just always, there's a couple that I always choose every single time. So I'd love for other people to choose first because I'm just immediately slamming on the young kid who we take care of and support button.
These are M is so brilliant. This is so cool.
Yeah. Incredible. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our We Really Like Our Friend stream.
Well, I feel really grateful because I've never actually, this is the first I'm seeing of M's design. I've never played one of their games before. And this is brilliant. I love this very much. And it's an entirely original system, right?
Yeah, it's really original. There's like a little bit of like Bob pieces, like belong pieces happening in here, but like I feel like a lot of the list choosing is a little from there, but it is like she spent like 3 years, like they've spent like 3 years just toiling away and like building this into.
This definitely reflects a lot of time and energy poured into it, and just how clean and elegant it is. It took me a second delay. Belonging Outside Belonging does acronym to Bob.
I said Bob, and then I realized that most people watching this are not going to know what that phrase means. Check out Dream.
Oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah. Bob and Fabita.
I love it. Oh man, okay, I'm torn. I'm down to get your collective, both of you, opinion on this. So there's 3 things I'm looking at: a dangerous spirit bound by old magic, minor sprites and their spokes creature, or where where'd it go? The fated, right underneath the fated goddess of a forgotten shrine.
Those are all so cool.
I know.
Those are extremely cool. Well, I can so Brennan, of course, goes like, gotta go dangerous spirit bound by old magic. Are we trying to tell a story? Are we trying to tell a story? But I think Charlie would definitely have her heart go towards, I think that she would feel an obligation towards like the fated goddess of a forgotten shrine as someone to take care of.
It would be really cool.
But also I think Charlie selfishly would be like, minor sprites and their spokes creature is very fun.
I was gonna say minor sprites also feels useful around the house in a different way than the other.
Yeah. I'm gonna pitch the fated goddess of a forgotten shrine because we've established that the sanctuary is very old and like there's been many generations of witches here, and I feel like it could be interesting to have like some sort of object from that. Maybe we just merge minor sprites and the fated goddess, like there's some kind of like Totoro-esque, like, you know, the little dust motes that are actually kind of like maybe like
I mean, like, as long as we're talking about threes in the game, could we merge all three?
Yeah, let's merge all three.
Goddess isn't dangerous in certain contexts, right?
So this is the fated dangerous goddess. So this is minor sprites and their dangerous fated goddess of a forgotten shrine bound by old magic.
Something like that.
That rules. Jeeyon, do you want to give her a name and a detail? I guess just one detail.
I think her name is Artemisia.
Oh.
And I think the detail is that when she is present, in any permutation, whether it is as like these relatively harmless but maybe like inconvenient sprites, or in her kind of most platonic form where she's floating through in like the old ways, or whether it's like when something's out of balance and suddenly like the old magic's broken and she's incredibly harmful, depending on which permutation. When it's neutral or positive, there's a smell of there's a plant called California sagebrush that has this really distinctive, like sweet floral kind of musky scent, and it's especially potent when it rains. So I think there's like that beautiful green smell unless she's unbound, unless there's something unbalanced, in which case it smells like an abundance of that plant rotting.
All right, I've written that down and added it to the sheet.
That is awesome.
But that kicks so much ass. I am going to choose. I know me. I know that I just want stories about intergenerational community and support. So I'm going to choose a cunning orphan. His name is Jax, Jax, and he is what do you call? He is constantly dealing with the rope running gangs, and is like kind of like a very like mischievous, like, you know, kind of like ends up like robbing from people a lot, but just like because, you know, he needs to, but also because like, you know, it's survival, but also like he is an impulsive like 15-year-old. Does that all sound good?
Yeah.
Love that. Question to you about Jax, our cunning orphan.
Yeah.
Is he a little artful dodgery, would you say?
Absolutely, yes, 100%.
So cool. I was going to go for a grateful thief, but I think that Jax maybe is that for us.
Yeah, Jax kind of hits those notes.
So I feel like we have there's so much good stuff. I want it all. I'm gonna say You know what? We're gonna go classic here. A very old cat.
Yeah.
We're gonna go a very old cat.
This cat is too old.
This cat's too old. I'm gonna say that. So we have Artemisia, Jax, and I think. This very old cat's name is going to be Charlotte.
I love it.
Charlotte.
I think Charlotte is. Charlotte. I think is 20 plus years old. I think Charlotte is a very, very old cat. And to me, if there's I think we're like on a coastal area, and I think there maybe is like a lot of, because there's ospreys. So even though this, I for some reason I see this as being like, when you said limestone, I just thought of like a sunnier climate. So I just see this cat as being that this is a cat that you almost never see her in transit, but wherever the sun has gone from morning to midday to afternoon, she's just like, when did you get over to that new spot of sunlight? I didn't see you get over there. She's just like, she is like horizontal on her side, lying down at all times.
Is it like the only thing about her that moves technology is just the tip of her tail?
Yes. We like never see her walking around. I'd also like to pitch that maybe, what do you call, like, there's always been like a cat or more cats living in the like for as long as anyone remembers, there's been a cat. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
like, it's not always been Charlotte, but there's always been a cat. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I would already die for all of them. So
me too. Yeah, these are already so good. The last thing we're going to choose about our sanctuary is we are going to each choose a wonder, and we are not going to really explain it very much. We are just going to choose a wonder that feels right. We already start with a circle of protection. I want an elaborate ore. I think that's nice. I think I stare at the stars a lot, and I think it'll be cool. I think it's like one of those like dark crystal. I've forgotten her name, but the witch in the dark crystal who's got that like giant.
Agra.
Yes, of course.
Agra.
I'm so sorry, Agra.
He's truly # goals, I gotta say.
Absolutely, yeah. She's really got it figured out. I was actually watching. I watched Kung Fu Panda the other day, and there's a lot of things.
Good choice.
It was a choice. It was an interesting choice. And I actually did cry at Kung Fu Panda, which I was Kung Fu Panda 2. Sorry, the sequel to Kung Fu Panda.
Oh,
which is an even milder choice. But there's an old soothsayer who is a goat with a beard, and she's also just a good mood. But,
I love that.
Oh gosh. Oh, there's so many good ones. Brennan, what are you gonna choose?
I'm going to choose. I'm stuck between two things. I'm stuck between two things, and I'll ask again. I feel like as the pure soul, or sorry, the pure heart. I always want to like check in with my coven mates to weigh in. I think that an upside down room would just be Charlie's room, as someone who has this gravity magic. And I think it would just be one of those things where it's like every room I've ever slept in, like I found out I was a witch because my bed would always end up on the ceiling. But I think that she would be most delighted. I think that she would feel bad about, like, if there's an upside down room, it's something she can't control. If she could make something in the sanctuary, it would be a clock with a sense of humor.
I think it should be a clock with a sense of humor.
Done deal.
Nice.
That's my thing, yeah. And Jeeyon, what are you feeling?
So many of them, honestly.
Oh yeah.
But I'm torn between a celestial garden or a door to somewhere truly special. And Brennan, as you were talking about Charlie's upside down room, it like as like you didn't choose it, but like as a possibility. I loved the idea that like on a randomizer, essentially, like she can't predict it, but Tamsin, when she opens the door to her room, it's like the doorway to Narnia, and it's just a different wild landscape every time. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. And like she's gotten in the habit of like walking with a bedroll and like a tarp just in case that's where she has to sleep. So there's like, that possibility. And then Celestial Garden, I like the idea that like one communal project that we all have is our garden. But because all of us are witches and we just like can't help but pull our magic into it, it's almost like floating in between all the plants are like little galaxies and astronomical phenomena, but like happening on a miniature. And I don't know which one of those two things I like more, because I like them both.
Oh man,
that's really cool. I really like the Door to Somewhere Truly Special.
I agree with Jamie. I agree with Jamie.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's do that.
That one speaks different to me. That one's really cool. Now the final thing that's going to happen for the Sanctuary is the star is going to, whoever's holding the star is going to choose some things. They're going to, who is the star?
I'm the star.
Cool. So you're going to draw a little question mark next to someone or something that's not what they seem, a little heart next to someone or something with secret feelings, and a little skull next to someone or something that's doomed. We don't need to worry about what that means yet. We're just going to find out as we go along.
And where, and is that, sorry, is that under leaders here, or?
No, that's still Sanctuary. We're still over on the 3 here.
Okay, so I'm going to draw a question, and within on this list of friends, I'm going to do that.
List of friends, resources, and wonders of the many we have. You're going to choose one to be not what it seems, one to have secret feelings, and one to be one to be doomed. And we're not going to figure out what those mean right now. You're just going to put some omens out there.
Awesome.
And gotcha. Okay. I will do that. Question mark means not as it seems. Heart means secret feelings. And then what's the symbol for doomed?
Skull.
A skull. Awesome. And I'm doing of the things we've already chosen.
Yes. Of these 11, 12, I can't count. Many of the 12, yes, of the 12.
Of the 12. And am I allowed to choose the things we had gratis, like living spaces, or?
Yep, you can totally choose that.
Okay. And I'm not supposed to explain it. I'm just supposed to do it.
Yeah, you're just assigning some stuff to things. Like, this is one of those things that just kind of like, it might come up during play. It might be something where like, it just suddenly all makes sense. It might never come up. That's kind of one of the really fun things about this game is it gives you like an overabundance of things to choose from. And you can very much be like, okay, well, this makes sense for me, but this bit, like this thing comes up a lot in the story, but then like maybe Charlotte doesn't really come up, but it's just nice to know she's there, you know?
Yes.
Charlotte. I was secretly hoping that you were going to pick like an old person's name for the cat, because I really love that. And then you did. It's like there's actual magic happening.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, Brennan, what are you picking? What are you drawing?
Oh, baby, the weight of this choice.
It's all right. We're going to have to make a lot more choices.
Okay, let's see here. First thing is something that is not as it's not as it seems, like more than it seems kind of thing.
Whatever that means to you. So, note about the resources, friends, and wonders. As we play through, those might get eliminated over time. If we run out of them, we will figure out. There's a thing that happens next, but just note that we can lose these over time. So now we are going to go over to the Kingdom of Mortal Kind. Cool. We're done with the bio break. We are now going to go to creating the kingdom. So to begin, what's going to happen is the Pure Heart is going to pick 2 countrysides. The Old Soul will pick 2 settlements, and the Wild Heart will pick 2 wildernesses. So if you see in the middle of the kingdom, there's countryside, settlements, and wildernesses, and specific people are going to pick specific ones. So as the old soul, I pick two settlements. As Brennan, you're going to pick 2 countrysides, and Jeeyon, you're going to pick 2 wildernesses.
Sounds awesome.
So I will pick. This is for the kingdom itself, not just our little village. So I mean, I got to pick battered fishing villages though, because correct.
So wait, you're picking countrysides?
Wait, oh, did I just totally do that wrong? I did. Yeah, sorry, Brennan, you do that. Might be.
Well, here's the thing, Jamie. Great minds think alike. So I will absolutely be choosing battered fishing villages for sure, and then networks of pastures.
Oh, that's good. This has got like a very Mediterranean energy. Like
I feel very like Amalfi Coast kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Like very blue water, very white stones.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm so obsessed with limestone right now, especially the idea of like stone that still has like fossils in it, like Precambrian fossils.
You know what? On that note, I'm going to choose a pitiless desert as one of the wildernesses.
Oh, cool.
I love
what
that.
if this is like there's a little bit of that like North Africa vibe in terms of like landscape, where it's like there's like the farmland and there's the cliffs and there's the Mediterranean, and also like right behind it is the Sahara. You know what I mean? Like, there's a kind of like back there is the desert.
Yeah, I love the idea of it being like within a certain range of the ocean. It's like, oh, this is very safe, arable land. And then there's just a point of distance from the ocean where it's like, and immediately uninhabitable.
Right. Well, yeah, and like as a contrast, the other one I want to pick is actually a forest thick and dark.
Ooh,
on the California coast, you often have what are called oh gosh, I forget the technical term, but basically when one biome kind of meets and overlaps with another. And so you can get these stretches where it's like a sheer cliff drop into the sea of this like stark sandstone, and that's where like all the tide pools are and stuff, and the ocean. But then you come in a little bit and there's like a thick redwood or cypress forest like right there as well.
Cool.
And then you go a little bit further beyond that and there's a desert, and it's just like I don't know, it's very cool and geographically unique to have so many biomes in like one space.
Which makes sense because we're so by the sea, so there's like the wind currents coming in. It's like water kind of ends up getting probably very localized. I don't know why I'm trying to explain a fantasy world, but
totally.
Explaining fantasy is fun.
Explaining fantasy is fun as long as you're not weird about it. I'm going to choose a breezy trade port because that just seems correct. And I'm also going to choose a smog-choked iron town. And I think the vibe there is that the breezy trade port is sort of like there is this kind of like, I think there's kind of like 2 capitals to, like, okay, so I'm imagining like I'm gonna pitch you on something and correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm imagining one of those like, this is a little bit like one of those like it's like there's an archipelago and then there's kind of like the mainland coast against the archipelago, and there's like there were all sort of these like little city states that kind of like ended up banding together into one kingdom, and the 2 main city states, whereas one of them was a breezy trade port that was like very like mercantile, and then another one was like much more industrial and like was a little bit like, you know, like it's kind of like engaging in some iffy mining practices, and I'm not sure of the 2 of them which one the leader is based in, but I think that's kind of the vibe of like the contrast between like this very like mercantile, colorful, like, yes, you know, like bring people in, and then the other side of that being this like very kind of like industrial, sort of more sunken in area that's kind of like carving a hole in the desert. Does that feel right?
I really love that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Immediately, because we're talking about the Mediterranean, I'm getting like an Athens Sparta vibe, but like extrapolated to a more modern industrial era.
I'm not sure what time period we are, but yeah. I feel that too. So
and
now,
it's like a city states in Italy during like the Renaissance too, right? Like
you can tell. You can tell what kind of art history I studied in undergraduate.
I mean, just you using the word city state, I'm like, all right.
So we are going to talk about who holds the real power. As a group, we are going to choose one from the list of leaders and give them a name and a detail. They will not be the only person with power. We'll come back to that, but this is sort of the main person who holds power, who holds the real power. They don't have to publicly hold the power, but they're the one who really does, you know?
I'm kind of into a religious authority, but I want to know, like, we're going to choose together.
Yeah, I'm interested in a religious authority. I think it's important to me that it's not like Catholic, because I feel like oftentimes when like we build fantasy settings where it's like, oh, there's like a very controlling religious authority, we kind of end up sliding into just Catholicism.
Yeah, and I actually don't necessarily want it to even be patriarchal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What I've been thinking about a lot about is are you familiar with the Roman Empress Elagabalus?
I'm not.
So I'm going to use she for her, even though the records use he. She was the high priestess. She was the trans woman high priestess of this sun cult in Syria, who was also coincidentally like a nephew of the former emperor, who kind of got brought from Syria to Rome to like rule over the empire in its waning days. And she quickly got dispatched after she was very gay all the time and dressed as a woman, which was just wrong, according to the Romans. But I love her dearly because she was just this very weird, very mentally ill trans teenager trying to rule an empire. And I love the thought of like a sun goddess cult that like is sort of like an Oracle of Delphi-esque, like ancient, like religious order that exists in opposition to us, you know? And then like the high priestess of that is sort of being like this singular high priestess as opposed to us, which is a coven. Might be really
cool. I'm pretty into that. I really like that.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I also love the idea of you're describing this character in a way that mimics a feeling of like the oracle of that mimics celebrity and worship, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I always love the idea that like if you look at like what is something that is true about like witches in mythology is almost always this idea that they don't need attention to be able to work their magic, which I think is really, it's like, which is not true for other types of magic users in almost any kind of fiction. Like you read stories about wizards and they're always like running around getting lots of attention and like, I'm the advisor to the king. And witches are like, no, I'm in my chicken leg hut doing my thing and I'm only gonna interact with you if you come out here and bother me.
Listen, if you have a baby to mash, we can talk, but otherwise like
I love
about this is that it's really, I don't know if you've read, there's a novel called Circe by Madeline Miller. And
I can't read, but yes.
It's amazing. I'm listening to the audiobook and it's quite good. And it's the story of Circe, and it doesn't focus entirely on Odysseus, like really at all. It's sort of like beginning to, I haven't reached the end yet, but she in this Madeline Miller decides to go with lesser known like origin, where Circe is actually the daughter of Apollo, and so there is this like radiant sun god and like the cult or sorry, not Apollo, Helios, and so like it's the literal sun god, and then she is basically banished and becomes exactly that, like a witch who doesn't need the attention of others in order to work her magic. In fact, that's like really important that she's just doing it for herself. So I love the idea of there being a counter cult as well. Like there's this main religious order that is like an Oracle of Delphi, very sun. I imagine there's like parades where people paint themselves in gold and like inevitably someone is poisoned because it's not great for you.
So cool.
And then there's like a counter cult of people who have just been there just as long and who also have power but in a different way.
And that's like us, like we're kind of, are we that counter cult? And then there's like
I was gonna, I mean, this is an idea I literally had just now, so I'm down to go off of it in any way.
I love the idea of it being like, and I think it's also really interesting of it's like there's all these city states, and the kingdom is like they are technically independent city states, but very much like Renaissance Italy or like medieval Italy, they are united by like a shared religious authority. And except instead of it being like a patriarchal church, it's this like shared oracle where it's like occasionally they'll war amongst themselves, but before you war, you like consult the sun oracles who are like, you know, like, no, you shall not war today, or like you shall only war ritually and not literally, you know, like they'll like, because they're sort of more important than everyone else in terms of like, and being celebrities. I love that thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna say, no, I really love this. And I think too that it's cool because the more granular, like authorities can take different vectors, and when one category of authority becomes more and more granular and another type of power becomes more and more consolidated, of course that becomes overwhelming. So in a place where like city states are fully independent and each like state leader only has sway over their one city or whatever, and there is like a civilizational religious authority, of course that's going to wield completely outsized power because there is no like mercantile or state or military power source that can just rival the coordination of this like oracle's, you know, domain.
So what is the name of the religious authority? What is who's like the head? Is there a head priestess? Is it like an order? What's their name? And I think we got plenty of detail, but what
can they be called the Serpentine?
Yeah.
Cool.
Love that. I love it.
I love the mythology of like the giant sun serpent, like the snake that carries the sun along its back, or you know, like the snake that swallows the egg that is the sun, or something, you know, like some weird
snakes continually. Well, snakes were like a symbol of Delphi, but also like they're a symbol of warmth and sun and heat a lot of the time in tarot as well.
Absolutely, because they love the sun.
Cool. I also feel like there's definitely, just to tie this back to our stuff, our forgotten goddess and her sprites that is dangerous and old and bound by magic definitely feels like the kind of thing that the rise of this Serpentine oracle has exacerbated the diminishment of these other spirits. And again, I always love, I don't know, this is something that I've been meditating a lot on recently, but the idea of things that gain power through like shared psychic presence in the minds of people versus things that exist in the natural or physical world. And I love the idea of the counterculture, whatever that is. You know, it's the thing of like, there are certain spheres that humans can interact with in which things that are fake are just as powerful as things that are real. Like when you're talking about charisma, if you can fake charisma, that's real charisma. Like there's no such thing as fake charisma. But if you're talking about like gravity, ocean, tides, these are things that impact the world regardless of, no matter how much you attempt to resist the storm, it will strike you down. Like,
well, gravity might be a bad example because I'm pretty sure your character fakes gravity.
Or she has deep respect for gravity and is so nice to it all the time that it helps her out occasionally, which would be how Charlie represents that.
That's great. I love all of this. Let's keep rolling because I feel like we have already forsaken the 4-hour mark.
No, it's terrible.
Let us do national joys. We are each going to choose or invent one from the list. And we don't got to detail it very much. We can just choose a thing that's important to us. And these are just things that matter to our kingdom.
I can jump in with one right away.
Yeah.
Many silly holidays and a beloved celebrity couple.
Both of them. Both of them. Cool.
Or is that two different ones?
Yeah, they're two different ones, but we can do both if you want.
You know what? No, I'll take that back. We'll just do many silly holidays.
I'm into it.
I really like that. I'm gonna choose I'm gonna choose a kind and gentle sea. I think we deserve it. I do not think this is like a storming landscape, you know?
I'm gonna say a ubiquitous national animal.
Yes. What's the animal?
I think let's choose something mammalian this time. I think it's like a ground squirrel.
I love that.
They have colonies, they have warrens, they're kind of a nuisance. They get into like agriculture and they're very smart. So like there are legit stories of people being outsmarted out of their homes or like having to like outsmart ground squirrels and just Looney Tunes being defeated by these animals. But I think there's also a lot of like local folklore and cultural heritage around these animals being good luck. And so it's like taboo to hurt them. So if you get a ground squirrel warren on your property, it's just like, fuck, I guess I just live with you now. Like you're
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good.
That is so fun. Also says a lot about our little city state where our coven is, that we're like, because this is not just a ubiquitous animal, it's a ubiquitous national animal, which means that the ground squirrel is like a symbol of our community, which
our kingdom,
indicates a lot of like of humility in terms of whoever our leadership was, to instead of being like the mighty eagle or whatever, it's like, no, it's a ground squirrel. We're the ground squirrel people.
I feel like what it might be is less like, I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it would be less like, oh, we are the people of the ground squirrel, but it's more just like if like in the same way where it was like if you were like, you know, like, Jay, what is the animal of the Hudson Valley? I would not be like, yes, it is the eagle. You know what I mean? Like I'd probably be like, oh God, it's the deer.
Yeah, for sure.
They're everywhere. You know what I mean? Like that. Like, and I think maybe it was more that. Yeah, where it's like, oh my God, they're everywhere. Like,
but it would hurt if they weren't there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like they're an important part of the culture.
Yeah.
I'm now the final little bit of the kingdom is that because I have the sun, I am going to choose a second leader, who is also leading the kingdom. And I feel like the clear choice for that is an all-wealthy merchant. I think that sort of in resistance to it's like a little budding, like it's very like no one's really kind of figured out how the balance lines up, but there's like kind of like the resistance between the very established oracles who are very much about like kind of being like, you know, don't go to war, like go to war symbolically or metaphorically, like kind of like are keeping the peace through prophecy, while in addition kind of like laying down these kind of like arbitrary and harsh tariffs. And then the all-wealthy merchant the merchants who are interested in like, we want war to profit, like we need conflict in order to gain wealth. And so the merchants are kind of like conspiring on that angle. And I'm going to name this merchant oh God, names. I'm just gonna steal some names that exist in my head and name her. I'm gonna name her Gentle. She is. What's a good title? Her name is Autocrat Gentle.
Autocrat Gentle. I love it.
And her full name's Gentileschi, but you know, because
sure.
I did. It is clear what I studied in art.
Oh my God, our goddess is named Artemisia.
Oh, true. Yeah, good. We're just ripping off Gentileschi. Yeah. And so Autocrat Gentle is she's just very much like she is a pretty young, very ambitious merchant. You know, like she is very firmly like, she knows what she wants and she will not be satisfied without like economic control. Like the Serpentine have like sort of authority over the hearts of the archipelago and like the landscape, like the cliffs, but it's the autocrats who control the trade and the flow of wealth and also the transportation between the islands and the coast. I feel like the coast is treacherous to like just go across directly, and you have to like kind of sail out and then sail back in. You know, like trying to navigate the cliffs yourself is much more dangerous.
And sorry, what's the autocrat's last name?
Gentle. She's just gentle.
Oh, gotcha. Is that short for something or no?
Gentileschi.
What is Gentileschi?
It is the name of an Italian Baroque painter who was a very skilled. She was a very skilled female artist during the Baroque period, and she did some really incredible, very brutal, intense, like chiaroscuro, like
there
she
you
was
go.
like very early Baroque. She was a contemporary of Caravaggio's, and she did. My favorite Baroque and late Renaissance painting of all time is her Judith slaying Holofernes.
Oh yeah, that's
like, a really famous one. It's so good. I could talk about that painting for hours, but basically one of many aspects I love about it is that's a scene that's been depicted a lot by many painters up to that period. And usually Judith is very young and beautiful, and it's like almost serene. But in hers, she and her handmaid are like holding him down, and there's like blood gushing everywhere, and she looks like she's like slaughtering a pig. It rules. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. I think the thing about Autocrat Gentle is I think that she has gained a lot of her power because she seems so meek, you know, where like she very much seems like someone who's just like, I think she kind of like started out maybe as like a younger bride, not like, you know, like not obvious, like, you know, like a 21-year-old bride to like an older individual, and then she just ruthlessly economically destroyed that other person and like just took over their economic operations and just like built a mercantile empire from there, all while still coming off as entirely harmless, you know.
I love that.
Yeah. I love that there are like 3 mistresses in various Renaissance legacies that I can think of who fit that exact description, and I love it.
Absolutely.
Can I bring a little bit of tarot nerdiness into this that I love? So the 3 suits in the minor arcana, I'm just noticing are sort of present because there's like the sea as cups. There's like all of the magic and how driving the action is as swords. There's the serpents and the sun cult as the wands. And then now with this merchant, we have pentacles. Like
we've got it all covered. Yeah, we've got the.
That's very cool.
Also, I want to quickly, before we move on from the kingdom, I want to draw your eyes to ignorance, poverty, and despair. Those are the 3 things that can get worse in the kingdom, and they all start out at 0. But as we goof up, it might get worse. So just be aware of those and know that there will be consequences. And then finally, there is the Underworld. Let's go over to the Underworld on the far right. I love Google Docs. There we go. So the first thing on this side is what kind of underworld we've got. It can be chthonic, infernal, or mirror, or we can choose more. Because we've got this Renaissance thing, I am personally very drawn to the idea of like that very classical Greek underworld. You know what I mean? Like the chthonic underworld. But I don't know what y'all are.
Yeah, I can definitely dig chthonic. I'm also partially drawn to mirror for reasons I cannot state right now. I think definitely not infernal, but I would go for chthonic or for mirror.
Yeah,
I agree. Of the 2, I like chthonic because it seems to fit in so well, but because of that, I want to rebel and say mirror so that we have like a little bit of aesthetic contrast.
What if it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B?
I mean, we've been doing that and I love it. So
we have infinite power. What if it's like what if it's kind of like it's like the gloomy reflection of the world above, you know?
I love that. I also think it's funny because there's this big authority sun religion. So the idea of a mirror world of shadows and darkness and that not necessarily being a bad thing feels very cool to me.
Yeah, I imagine it's like there's like a mildew smell associated with it. It's very fungal. And also if it's a mirror world that's kind of gloomy, like that fits really well into this sort of dreamlike collective psyche energy that we were talking about a lot through this game. Very into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the underworld is a dangerous thing that will vex us and destroy us potentially, but I think that I love the thought of also maybe it being not even like it's not like shadowy and dark, but it's like the effect when like you look at an old mirror and everything's kind of like desaturated and a little foggy and like you can kind of see like the spots in the glass where it's been like damaged, where it's like the scrapes and the little bits of silver having fallen off. That kind of like just being in the air, where it's like you walk through and it's a little foggy and there's like these little like lines running through the air where like the air itself has been scratched.
Yeah. We were talking about fungal element, and I just realized that the illustration behind this is mushrooms. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
The underworld is a mirror realm beneath and behind the mortal world. It is part of the natural order existing in balance with the kingdom above, but the workings of the coven and their magic stir its denizens and whet its appetite. The first thing that is going to happen, Google Docs, there we go. The player who drew the star is going to choose one kind of denizen that inhabits the underworld. So you are going to, from the list on the left, underneath of your heart, you're going to choose, Brennan, you're going to choose one of the denizens who troubles the underworld, or who exists in the underworld.
And where is this located? This is...
It is over here. It is on the underworld sheet. It is...
Aha!
Yeah.
Cool. Underworld denizens, goblins, merchants, meddlesome muses.
Goblin merchant.
Oh, goblin merchants, meddlesome muses, chaos demons, torture devils, spiritual bureaucrats, trickster fae, and shades of the dead. Always have shades of the dead. Mm-hmm. We have little sprites that serve our goddess. Mm-hmm. And because we have this merchant who's like in our waking world, I feel like I either want to go with goblin merchants or trickster fae, and my thought would be that trickster fae maybe are more natural occurring parts of this underworld, but that if this underworld is a reflection of ours, perhaps it has started to be mercantile like our world has, and that there are goblin merchants there, but maybe they're a new thing there. Mm-hmm. What do you guys feel between trickster fae or goblin merchants?
I kind of feel trickster fae. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's something about trickster fae that makes the boundaries of our reality feel less certain in a way that is like narratively appealing. Yeah. Even if I imagine it's not super appealing characters in their lives, right? Yeah. And it also fits in with that black dog, like the black dog and the puka is a trickster figure as well. Yeah. I love the idea of creatures that are both prosaic and endlessly powerful. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Also the very dreamlike quality of it, especially because like your character is so tied to dreams, and like the fact that there's something about the tricksters and that whole thing that feels very good. So Jeeyon, there is a barrier to the underworld. You are going to choose what it is.
Let's see. A ferocious guardian, an unsolvable riddle, a devious labyrinth, delirious waters, an exhaustion of stairs. That was my morning today.
Mood.
Toll to pay. I kind of like the idea of delirious waters because we draw our bounty and solace from the sea, and the idea that it's almost like going diving and the kelp forest suddenly turning like unreliable and treacherous. Waters that we normally navigate well and with familiarity suddenly become an act of danger.
Have you seen that weird, kind of not great animated movie, Sinbad and the Seven Seas?
I haven't.
That's fine. There's one part of it where, wait, no, I think maybe this also happens in Pirates of the Caribbean too. But the mood of you turn the boat upside down and then you are in the mirror sea.
I think that does happen in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Sorry, my phone out because I took a million photos of Roland just now that I'm going to share with you guys later.
Oh, thank God. Thank you.
Perfect little witches familiar right now.
Oh my God. Roland knows what the hell is up.
He knows how to support. He's a good SPC.
He really is. He's doing the hard work. So now what we're each going to do is you will see up above all this, there are claims. The underworld has its claim over each of us. It starts at 0. But we're each going to follow the instruction at the 0 mark for our character. So I will do, when the game begins, circle 3 laws below and decide what they mean. I don't have to tell you what they mean, I just get to decide them. The Wild Spirit gives the Underworld's ruler a name and a title, explaining nothing more, and the Pure Heart chooses an additional kind of denizen and gives one to the Sanctuary as a friend.
Okay.
So I am going to choose 3 laws. Obviously, food and drink, I feel like. I feel like we all know that one. That one's clearly pomegranates, right? Like there's I think the only thing with color in the Underworld are like these like beautiful, vividly red and purple fruits that if you eat one of them, obviously you can never come back.
I love it. Are you two okay with like something that's a little less anthropomorphic as like the ruler?
Yo,
Perfect.
yes.
Okay. I love the idea of the ruler of the Underworld basically being like a mycorrhizal layer, like the network that runs underneath like the topsoil and forest, like the fungal network that connects everything. And every time someone crosses over into the Underworld, every time someone dies, you become a part of that of that network. And so when you have to appeal, like, because I'm sure just like in Greek myth, people have gone to the Underworld to appeal to the ruler. And instead of it being, you know, like 1 or 2 singular entities that pass arbitration, it's a collective decision that's just done instantly.
So cool.
And
yeah, what is its name and title?
I kind of I want when people call upon it, I think the title that we have given it is the All Hands. And it's not reflective of like anything actually physical or literal about it. It's just that we don't have good words for it, and that's the best way that we can describe it.
That's one of those names you give something to calm yourself down about how numinous and terrifying it is.
True. God,
I'm gonna call this All Hands so we don't freak out all the time.
Right. Yeah, I think there's like many artistic depictions of All Hands where it's like the network, but there's also the fruiting bodies that like pierce the surface, and those are like the faces and kind of like remembrances of your beloveds. Like if you're appealing to the All Hands, that's what happens. Something will actually kind of come up out of the soil, and it'll look like someone you love who you lost.
Oh my god, I'm changing the red fruit to be beautiful red and yellow flowers that bloom from the chests of the dead. That if you get lost within them, you never return.
I like it.
Love that so
The
much.
other 2 laws is in the Underworld, if someone requests a kindness from you, you must give it to them, unless the kindness would destroy you. And so you must be very careful in the Underworld. If someone asks you of something or you ask something of someone, you must be very smart about your words in order to avoid getting, like if someone asks you, like, may I have your coat? You have to find a metaphorical way around it. And then the other rule is raiment, which means you cannot wear any colors in the Underworld. Everything you wear must be monochromatic.
Awesome.
I love that Fae element of having to pick your words very carefully. It goes back to the trickster Fae vibe.
And Brennan, what is the new denizen? What's the other denizen of the Underworld, and how are they friends with us? What is one of their friends?
So I'm picking something from the Underworld has denizens that becomes a friend, or am I picking a friend that becomes a denizen of the Underworld?
You're picking a denizen of the Underworld, so like goblin merchants, and then you're going to add a goblin merchant to the sanctuary as a friend.
Hell yeah. Okay. Mendelsohn uses casting as torture double spiritual bureaucrats. I think I am gonna go. I am actually gonna go goblin merchants. And I think the way that works is I'm trying to think of like what that would be, and then over friends, I'll go over here and incredible. So
all goblin merchants. We just have one goblin merchant.
Gotcha. Let me go ahead and update that. Should I name this goblin merchant?
Yeah, name it in detail. Who's our goblin merchant friend?
What is is there some kind of part of a fungal entity or something like that that moves or is transitory? Like I know that there are like
spores.
Spores, yeah.
And then sometimes the fruiting bodies are a little mobile, but the spores are the ones that are the most transitory.
It might also not be fungal themed, just because they are kind of, as you mentioned, they're a bit newer and maybe a bit more invasive.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I'll that's too silly. Is there Jeeyon, I feel like you know this. Is there a name for when, like, you know, dandelions have petals and then they emerge into those little tufted things?
Yeah, I think it's the sepal. But let me. Oh wait, are you talking about the seeds?
Yeah, like, or the little chimney sweep umbrella that flies away on the wind from a dandelion. Is there a name for that thing?
Yeah, that is the sepal. It's sepal. It's the part of the flower that's green that functions as the protection of the flower when it's a bud.
So sepal is a goblin merchant who is our friend in particular, and I feel like because there is a floral element to the underworld and flowers do cast things like aloft, and I'm trying to think about like the idea of like what could be a mercantile impulse of an eternal realm, but I feel like the idea of I picture literally like a little goblin with like a long cap that flies up out of the sea on like a giant dandelion puff stem.
Oh, that's so good.
And to me, I think the idea of like these things don't appear to regular people. They don't like show the appearance of the underworld, but would particularly come up to our coven because I feel like anytime, like if mortals have the ability to wield the magic of realms, then it would behoove those realms to occasionally come and barter for some of that power back. And I feel like sepal is something that comes out to be like, you know, that in that kind of way of like, hey, like the realm is eternal and stuff like that, but we still manage its interests. And given that we reflect the kingdom above, and you're in this new mercantile place, rather than like doing our old school thing, which would have been like terrible punishment to the hubris of mortal witches, we're just going to come and barter for some of that back. We're going to give you some of these magic underworld mushrooms, and maybe you undo this spell that's like sapping too much of the underworld's energy. That feels to me like what a good goblin merchant vibe would be.
I love it.
I love that. All right, cool. So we are all set with building the things. The last thing we're going to do before we take a break before the end of the first chapter is we are going to go right back up to our character sheets. And now it is time to ask each other questions. We can go in any order we want. However, the first question must always be oh goodness. Oh, I should have made sure I was double checking because that. The first question is always the pure heart asking the old soul a question, and the last question is always the old soul asking the pure heart a question. Also, these character sheets are slightly wrong. We each asked 2 from each of the lists. We will ask for total 2 from each of the little lists, and 12 questions total, weaving together a coven. And the first one is always from the pure heart to the old soul, and the last one is always from the old soul to the pure heart. So, Brennan, ask me a question.
Okay. Why did you invite me to the coven?
I think I first invited you as a like a scullery maid. Like I just kind of was absent-mindedly like, oh well, we need someone to help clean up around here, and we're a safe sanctuary for the lost, and I've heard that this girl needs a place to stay, so of course she can stay with us. And then you started staying with us, and then almost immediately began displaying bizarre magical powers, and I was like, oh well, great. Like, oh okay, wow, like I guess perhaps someone who can see the future, kind of made the right choice. I think that's kind of how it happened.
I love that.
Yeah. Time to learn names. Tamsin.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you used to revere me, and what changed?
Ooh. I think that I really love the way that Minerva, that they were able to sway the birds. The the observations I made of them, just sort of persuading them. It was very moving and also very very powerful. And I think a lot of it actually, it wasn't like there was a break in faith or trust. It was just that through living with the coven and over time, and not that much time, maybe like a year of just being out here every day, Tamsin learned that there are non-magical ways to interact with the birds and with the environment around them. And so it wasn't that reverence was lost. It's just that it was tempered and then faded to the point of not being there anymore. And again, not out of a loss of respect, but just because she learned her own skills that created the same power in a different way. Minerva, what future do you see for me?
Ooh. I see you settling down. I see that despite your wanderlust and your imagination and your sort of like gung-ho journeying forth into different worlds and all of that, I think I see you growing, like eventually sort of stabilizing and like sort of like finding a single cell spot and kind of settling down and being comfortable there.
That's nice.
Charlie. And my question is, when did I lose your trust? I'm asking hard-hitting questions only.
only the hard-hitting ones. I think I have a very bashful embarrassment in that when I first met you and you were so mysterious, I assumed that your like mysteriousness and bookishness was just you having a level head on your shoulders, and that all of your prognostications and auguries and reading of the orrery were of course you being this like high status parental figure, and that all of that peering into the mysteries of the world was like providing this level of protection and shelter, protection and shelter that was like so far above my conception that I couldn't like see it. And then I realized that you're just interested in that shit. And
so just to make sure, so how did that make you lose your trust in me? Does that definitely make sense in terms of like losing your respect for me? But I'm curious about how that made you lose your trust.
That you weren't, that all of your vast wisdom was not dedicated to protecting the other people around you necessarily. So the loss of trust was like, I was walking through life assuming that I had this like mystical seer who would tell me if something bad was going to happen. And the like Mr. Magoo thing where like he walks through the construction site as it's being built and just nothing bad can happen.
Yeah.
I think that's that in the first couple months that Charlie was at the coven, she was like, oh, well, Minerva, they've always got my back. Like Minerva is never going to let something bad happen. And then maybe something terrible happened to like Jax or some of the Osprey or something else around us. And Minerva was like, yeah, that was always going to happen. And I was like, oh, so you're not like bending your awesome powers to like keep bad stuff from happening to us? And that was like loss of trust. Like Minerva is not that's not the kind of seer that they are.
Yeah, I love that.
Trust and authority. Yeah,
absolutely. Great.
Yeah, it's again, I don't think the vibe here is one of like, you've betrayed me. It was just like I felt foolish because I assumed it without asking. I was like, well, of course Minerva would always be bending the strands of fate to protect me, and it's like under no circumstances.
That's what you'd bend the strands of fate to protect people. So of course you assumed that that's what I would do.
Yeah, of course.
So we asked 2 questions of each other, right? So
of each person. So I will ask you 2 total, and I'll
ask you 2, and I'll ask Charlie 2. Okay, I'll ask Minerva's second question. How do you keep me under control?
So just out of curiosity, do you feel like you are more of like a wrathful, violent soul, or like a like what's kind of your what do you need to be kept, like what happens if you're not kept under control?
I mean, I think I'm like something sharp where it has a utility and a clear purpose, but once it's taken out of the sheath, it can cut at any time. And there's not malice behind it, but there is strong feeling. And I see myself as being pretty young, like maybe mid-20s. I think Tamsin's mid-20s, and hasn't shed like that callowness. Like she just has not built up the world experience and the life experience to understand her own self-awareness. She has all these powers of observation, but doesn't know how to implement them. And so, it's just like leaving a really sharp knife somewhere in your room without the sheath, and you know it's there, but you don't know when it could cut you.
I think Minerva, I think the way I keep you under control is through routine, which is not to say that like I am like enforcing a routine,
right?
But I'm kind of always there, like, like don't forget to eat, like I brought you some food, like that kind of like, even at like when she's not there because she's busy being like a weird eccentric person. Sorry, when they're busy being like a weird eccentric person up in the tower, they're still like making sure that Tamden is like getting sleep, eating food, even as like Tamden is kind of like wandering off and getting kind of like lost in these environments. I think Minerva is also kind of constantly just like keeping them, like giving them ways to be grounded and giving them like that kind of like rhythm and stability that I think that does that sound right? That like
without I really that, like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Like without that, you just kind of like just kind of go whirling off, or like just mood swings or just something, would just overtake you.
Well, it's like a different kind of star chart, right? Like yeah.
It's like I'm watching the stars, but I'm also like watching your own. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome.
I just asked a question, but I still need to ask 2 of the pure heart, and then
you just keep asking questions.
Yeah, I have 3 to ask. So
you need to ask some questions, Brennan.
I'll ask one. I'll ask my second of the old soul before I move on to the wild spirit. Because we had that trust question, Jamie. In what way am I wiser than you, if any?
You are confidently wiser than me. I think that the fundamental wisdom you possess that I lack is I think I don't get why, like, the material world does not concern me. Like, I guess I'm a little more Gandalf than I thought I was, which is that, like, I am kind of, like, engaging in, like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm constantly engaging in this, like, almost like astrological chess game against, like, the other, like, the oracles and, like, the serpentine and, like, all these kind of, like, heavy world powers and, like, you know, kingdom powers, and, like, that I've just completely lost track of, like, oh, well, like, these ordinary people matter. And, like, I read so much, like, romance and fantasy that I lose track of, like, oh, well, there's like an enjoyable part of, like, being a person. You know what I mean? Like, outside of kind of my care of Camden and my care of you, I really lose. Like, I think that's some of your answer to my question, which is that I'm not dedicated to protecting the things around me because I literally don't. I think of them as, like, movements in the stars, and, like, the idea of protecting, like, a village is, like, the equivalent to me of, like, the feeling of, like, well, I'm not gonna, like, stop a comet in the sky. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's just a thing that happens. And so I think for Minerva, they don't. You are wiser because you understand that people have value. And, like, I know people have value. Like, I know people have value. Like, I'm not remorseless.
Yeah.
I don't know people have value. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Minerva loses track of that.
I wrote down on my question, it's like, you have lost the trees for the forest.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
I cannot see the trees, you know, yeah.
You can only see the forest. I love that. Yeah, I think that's and I think Charlie is, like, the exact opposite of that, where it's like, Charlie's, like, very against type for characters that I like play and create, in terms of, I think she's like, I think that rather than me, who likes to jump in and like what's the real answer, she's like, oh, well, that's an impossible riddle, just make bread for people. Like, you're never gonna figure out the deep just, like, it's easy, just make bread, make sure people have a place to sleep, don't get it twisted. Like,
yeah.
So I think that's when, that's the way that I think she feels wiser than Minerva in that way as well.
Like, Minerva definitely has a form of wisdom, but Charlie has empathy.
Jesus. Yeah.
Minerva's not. They're not a bad person. They're just
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what their bad side is. Yeah. Cool. So I have 2 questions left.
I can 2 questions as well.
All right. And you're both for the pure heart. So do you want to ask one, and we'll just keep.
Okay. Should I go first then? Okay. Charlie, who from my past do you remind me
of? First thing that jumped into my head was sister. That I remind you of your sister. And for whatever reason, I feel like the ways in which I remind you of her are mysterious to me. I will leave it up to you if you have even shared that I conjure that connection in your mind.
Nice.
Camden, I have a question for you. How will you be the absolute death of me? 2 ways to read that question.
Whoa. Okay.
How will you be the absolute death of me?
I mean, I think with this kind of caretaking mentor dynamic, even though I'm not learning directly from you the way that Charlie initially was, like, I think that you establish yourself as kind of like the fulcrum of our little tripod. And I think, how old are you, Charlie?
If you're mid-20s, I think Charlie is 21 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
The important note about Minerva is that they are not like they are an old soul. They are not
right.
Yeah, they're probably like mid-30s. You know.
Yeah. No, I imagine
like early 30s.
I'm just trying to get an idea, and after this, I'd love to ask like what we look like as well.
Yeah.
But I think there's a sense in which like Charlie is the youngest, and so there's this like tacit kind of expectation for you that Charlie's going to be the one stirring shit, but it's always Tamsin, and it's never quite on purpose. Like Tamsin is like
is it Tamsin or
Tamsin? Yeah, Sin. I don't know how it's actually pronounced if you're British, but that's how I pronounce it.
That feels
I think Tamsin is sort of like a kid, like a young goat. Like there's just this unintentionally destructive trait to her where she just pokes at things and like kind of pulls on them until they come apart, and it's all curiosity. It's just like the curiosity of wild things, but it, especially given that you're trying to establish routine and all of these things, and also you probably like things just so to a certain extent, like your tools, your scrying bowl, and Tamsin is kind of physically clumsy in addition to being like devastatingly curious, and it's just like it stresses you out. It's like leaving a destructive cat alone in your house, not knowing what you're going to come back to.
I think Minerva is maybe also just a little bit like very focused on everything needs to be in its correct location, and like they just kind of like the emotion of, oh my god, I can't find my keys, is how they get when it's like, oh my god, my compass is in the wrong desk drawer, you know? Like,
yeah. Cool.
I love that. To Tamsin, what about me annoys you the most?
I think it's like it's the way that everyone's strength is also it's just the flip side of the coin, right? So in the way that Charlie's always helpful and like very proactive and knows what to do to help shelter people and soothe people, sometimes like I just like, fuck, let me live, you know, like let me fuck up, like what's the big deal? And in spite of being, I think there's also this way in which Charlie is definitely maybe more emotionally mature than Tamsin, and in spite of being younger, and there's this weird ingrained hard to shed idea of like, I'm younger, so like you should listen to me or at least leave me alone, but that does not happen, and I think that is the most annoying trait for sure.
Oh, very good. I'm out of questions. I'm the first.
Yeah, you're waiting. Charlie. What have I never been strong enough to do?
Whoa, what a question. Wow, I'm most disappointed. This is so interesting. This popped into my head really quickly. And what have I never been strong enough to do? Because I think Tamsin has such like violent magic and is like a knife and has that destructive quality. And I think therefore Charlie would have had the sense never to ask her to do something. Like Charlie would never have asked her to like bake a loaf of bread or do something like, would never have asked her like Charlie understands like, oh, well, my magic is the soft, gentle, healing magic. I'm not going to ask him to do something like that. I think there was one time where we were tending to the livestock and one of the osprey was really badly injured. That it had gotten like a territorial fight, or there was just like too many in a coop one time, and they normally get along, but there was just something where there was a fight. One got really badly injured, and there was a moment where it was like covered in blood, and I was like, oh, Tamsin understands like confrontation and combat. So like and I maybe just like asked you like, oh, just put your fingers in this wound or do something, like hold this tight while I'm like wrapping this up. I feel, and I feel like there is a moment there where it's like, yeah, what have I never been strong enough to do? And I feel like the thing that Tamsin's never been strong enough to do is I made a mistake about like you having a comfort around interacting with blood and destruction. And I was like, so Tamsin will be comfortable helping me heal this bird because Tamsin understands destruction. But I think the thing you've never been strong enough to do is to deal with the aftermath of destruction. Like what happens after something is injured or destroyed. And I think that's the thing. And I think that Charlie is so comfortable in that space that she messed up. And I think she probably, this is not what the question asked for, but she probably still feels guilty of being like, oh, Tamsin will have no problem. Like destruction is her forte. That's not the case. Taking a thing from undestroyed to destroyed is Tamsin's forte. What happens after that, I think, is what you've never been strong enough to do.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it. That's perfect.
Oh my god.
It's like the gore of mending, right?
The gore of mending, of like, yeah, medicine is this thing is hurt. It's going to be soiling itself. It's going to be gross. It will get infected. We'll have to drain it. Like all that stuff is like, it was like, you know, like, oh, you're so comfortable leaving our enemies like mangled and bloody in a ditch. Why can't you drain this pus out of this wound? Like,
yeah. It's the tension between like violence is an instant and like healing is an eternity, right? Like,
right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and an inability to sit with consequences.
Oh
yeah, absolutely.
So what questions are left? Who's got questions left?
I think Charlie's got one
too. I have one for the wild spirit. I have one for Tamsin. Yeah. When has my courage impressed you, if ever?
Ooh. You know what? I'm going to use this same example. We're going to use this as like an anchoring moment. I think when we were tending the osprey, I think I was like holding it together on the outside, but I clearly did not enjoy any moment of this. And it became clear that we were going to need to bring the osprey into the house in order to, just because it's more sanitary there are more supplies, it would need changes in its dressing. But they're big birds, and they don't want to be in a house. They want to be in their house. And as we were carrying it, it started fighting you. And there was just this very, like, I know that you don't do well with confrontation. That it's just not, it's not part of your magic, right? You're the magic of like a foundation. You're not the magic of like dealing with the things that hit the walls. And in spite of that though, you were still so gentle, and so, because you knew that if you like met force with force, it would make the wound worse. And so on the way up, you just sort of took it. Like there were ways in which you were able to contain it, but you also became very badly injured. There were a couple times when just like I had to steady you from behind and like put like grasp your clothes to keep you from falling right off the cliff, because the osprey was like struggling and trying to get away. And just how centered you were during that entire walk back up to the house. As soon as we got to safety, like, you know, you became a lot more disheveled, but like I saw in the moment of crisis that you were able to hold it together, and that really impressed me quite a lot.
I love that so much. I especially love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel that makes me so happy. Yeah, I think definitely of just, I know you said it exactly right, of just taking it, of being like, yeah, that's like, this bird is scared. It's going to hurt me. It's going to injure me. And that's okay. We just have to get into the house, and I'll be injured, and then we'll take care of that next, you know, like, and I think too, it would be very funny if, I think the thing that maybe made that moment even more jarring is any time Tamsin has ever been confrontational and there has been any kind of like bloodshed, or even not bloodshed, Charlie is like extremely averse. So the idea of like maybe there was like a misappropriation where it's like it's like Charlie is like scared of it's like, oh, like obviously Charlie's like young, they're scared, like she's a scared person, so like any conflict she's going to be scared. And it's like, no, she's scared of like violence and anger.
Yeah.
Like the danger is fine and injury is totally fine. Injury is unavoidable. So it's not blood. It's like, oh, all the times I thought that Charlie was scared of blood and damage, she was actually scared of hatred and anger. And when it was blood and damage under a different circumstance, she was totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I found that very impressive. Absolutely.
I love that.
I have my last question, which is Charlie, what would turn you into me?
And you don't mean me as in the old soul. You mean me as in Minerva with all of their qualities and things like that.
Yeah. What would I think? Perhaps I think I'm gonna refine the question slightly because I feel like there's a specific note I'm really interested in, which is what would cause you to gain the outlook on the world that I have?
There's an old fable that is at the center of Charlie's being, which is the story of like the old man and the little girl on the beach, and the old man is walking along and sees that the tide has washed up thousands of starfish on the beach, and there's a little girl tossing the starfish one by one back into the ocean as they're baking in the hot sun. And the old man walks up and sees this endless, there's like hundreds of thousands of them. And the old man walks up to the little girl and is like, little girl, you're not like, this doesn't matter. They're going to die soon. You're never going to get all these starfish back into the ocean. It just doesn't matter. And the little girl picks up a starfish, throws it back into the ocean and says, it mattered to that one. Now that's Charlie's core philosophy. If the world ever showed her that it's going to take the starfish she threw back and wash them back up again, and she had it proven to her that that was going to keep, in other words, like, not like, you already have made your peace with not being able to save everybody. Also, you won't even be able to save the people you save. That would turn her into Minerva.
Yeah, absolutely. The very last question we all ask the deck together, which is we are going to ask the deck what troubles await us, and then we're going to take a break and resume after taking a bio break and stretching and scratching back, whatever. So the last thing we'll do is we will all ask together the deck what troubles await us. So 3, 2, 1.
What troubles await us?
Cool. All right, and let's go. Take a quick moment. Let's come back. Let's reconvene at 5, and we will talk through the next chapter of the game. Or
two PST.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry,
Lovely,
I
guys.
forget. Yeah.
Woo-woo.
Love you.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're all just vibing. Yeah. No, this is such a. M just has an incredible mind with like systems. Like that's kind of what always really blows me away about them is they just like really get how things fit together. It's
really incredibly designed. They're like, they hit this, like, there's all these sort of impossible to articulate but still very rigid things of like genre and tone.
This game fucking rules. It also, like, given that it's based so much on tarot, they really captured the way that tarot creates an inherent tension as you wait to flip over every card, and fate is inevitable, and yet you have a lot of agency in your choices. Every single tarot reader that I've been mentored by always says the same thing, which is like, the cards will show you the way, but like you get to draw your own map. And I feel like this game really captures that spirit. It also like it's one of those things that's so good it makes me want to give up on all of my witch games that I'm designing. I'm just like, fuck it, there's a great one, so like damn, there doesn't need to be another one. This is fucking awesome. Like kudos to M. This is very, very
kudos to M. Yeah. Like part of why they wrote it was they were just like, there's so many games that use tarot cards, but none of them use tarot cards like the way tarot cards are, you know, like everyone kind of uses tarot cards as like a deck of cards, just like a cool deck of cards. And
right.
like she was just kind of like, no, like you need to treat a tarot deck like a tarot deck.
They don't
and
actually,
like,
they don't use them as divination tools.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like this game does, like we still have our inevitable fates, like we've still got those 3 sets of cards on the other screen waiting for us to flip over later. Yeah, I'm working on a game with M right now, Yozeba's Bed and Breakfast, and it's just so smart how like you've played Sleepaway. You like, I'm not a great like systems engineer, you know what I mean? Like I could never write like a Dungeons and Dragons-esque level of crunch into a game, you know?
Yeah.
Like she has that mind. Like she can totally like.
Yeah, no, the system in this, like this has a lot of potential to become one of those systems that like people talk about and base other games on. It's quite good.